Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's good to see you. This is a reading for Cancer moons, or if you have significant Cancer placements and are needing a feminine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Cancer, I've pulled your cards. Your reading is it feels very intense. It feels kind of like you're doing a lot of shadow work, actually, is what was coming through. And there's a lot of Scorpio energy present in your reading. So there may be some sort of significant interaction with a Scorpio, or you may have other Scorpio placements in your chart, which might be interesting to take a look at. But generally, I just feel like it's more so talking about like just the energy of Scorpio, in terms of like death, rebirth cycles, that kind of thing. I feel like this is a major sort of transition point for you, especially because of all the other cards that are coming out. But just overall, the context of your reading today, I feel like you're going through like a significant like transformation, perhaps doing like through shadow work, right? So we have here the seed, the shadow. There's a lot of cards here. I'm not going to go through each of them individually, but the maiden, the self, Eros, the river, and gem. And so all of these cards are talking to me about like through this shadow work that you're doing, it feels kind of like you're finding or connecting with a really significant aspect of yourself, and because of that you're coming out stronger, is how this is coming through. And it's like perhaps you're not necessarily seeing that part yet, because it kind of feels like where you are now feels, it could perhaps be like the peak of your discomfort or something like that, right? Like there's a lot of difficulty perhaps, or just heaviness, but it's kind of like there's, I feel like you decided to do this, right? Because it's like shadow work is a choice. You have to choose to do shadow work. You have to choose to take a look at like your shadow in order to heal it and integrate it. And something that's helpful to remember for when you're doing shadow work is to remember that like the shadow is formed as a method of protection, right? So if for example, if usually in childhood, there's some sort of harm or trauma or whatever it is, and then the shadow develops from there, right? So there's something about, I feel like for you, Cancer, it's almost like because perhaps something ended or something fell apart, or just like there's just some sort of difficulty in the past, which I'm not necessarily seeing. It's like because of that, you chose to undergo this shadow work in order to heal that aspect of your life, perhaps, and integrate it so that that sort of experience doesn't happen again, which is extremely brave and very worthwhile in the end. I feel like that's just kind of a reminder that's coming through for you, that you may be in a difficult position right now, or you may be feeling kind of heavy, or just like it's just like a never-ending kind of darkness maybe, but it's like you have your guidance, you're on the right path is kind of how I'm seeing this. And I feel like you're fast approaching whatever it is that you're looking for, right? Whatever it is that you've been searching for, this gem, but it feels like within yourself, right? So there's all of that energy coming through, which is really lovely. Yeah, I'm not going to go through those. Okay, so we're going to just start off with the reading. So all four of these cards came out together. The Creator, the Heart, and the Gnosis, which is all really lovely energy, right? And then the Underworld, right? All of these cards came out together. So it's like, I feel like here, with the Creator and the Heart, especially with the Underworld, like the Underworld brings in so much. There's so much like Greek mythology sort of stories coming in for you. So it's kind of like what you may be going through. It feels kind of like almost like something that all of I don't know how to describe this. Like it's like part of the human condition. It's kind of how it's coming through. It's part of the human condition, what it is that you're experiencing. So it's kind of like many heroes, let's say, in our culture have gone through a similar challenge or a similar kind of like, it's coming through a trial by fire, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that. Perhaps, maybe. But with the underworld, all of this sort of Greek mythology, so the two stories that were coming through was like, especially with the heart and the creator, was kind of like Disney's Hercules. I know that's not in line with actual Greek mythology, but Disney's Hercules, where he like has to go to the underworld to save somebody he loves, right? It's not necessarily that. I feel like it's more so saying that you're going into your own perhaps psyche or something like that in order to save some aspect of yourself, right? Like to integrate the shadow, the aspect of self that has become detached or lost or something like that. And then also with the underworld, it was coming in with like the river Styx, which is the river that Achilles was dipped into in order to become immortal or like invincible, right? Like there's an invincibility that you are gaining. That's part of the gift or the gem that you're gaining is invincibility. So it's kind of like, I feel like you know that, Cancer. There's, especially with the creator here, or it's kind of like, especially, this is why it's coming through with kind of Scorpio energy, because I feel like it's saying like going in really deep, like looking into like the deepest, most hidden aspects of self in order to create something really lovely out of it, right? This is all, or it could just be like, the way that my readings come through often are very intense, right? Like there's a lot of like really sometimes like overly dramatic storytelling methods that I use in order to get a message across. But for you, it might even be something like really like simple and mundane, where it's just kind of like you're like, for example, just like going to an old, it was kind of coming through maybe as like visiting like your old childhood home or something like that. And because of that, it's like all of these memories get stirred up about your experiences, some of them good, some of them bad. And because of that, you're like integrating all of those aspects. So it doesn't have to be intense or heavy. That's just sort of how the stories come through for me. But it may be something as simple as that, right? Like just visiting some sort of childhood, perhaps memory or something like that. And it's bringing up all of this, right? All of this sort of understanding, love, compassion, creativity as well. Because you've perhaps gained enough distance from a situation in order to have understood the lesson or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a lesson. Just you've just integrated some aspect of your shadow. Especially with this Gnosis card, which I really love, because the first two animal cards to come out are the eagle and the fire ant, right? So it's kind of like with this eagle circling, right? Getting the information or the knowledge, right? You're so close to it. You're so close to gaining the information that you need. And especially with this fire ant, because it's kind of emphasizing more so like almost like a rabbit hole, right? Like Alice in Wonderland, like going through this like this, I don't know, portal to the underworld. Whatever that means metaphorically, right? It's like you're going, and the fire ant comes with very uncomfortable energy, right? Sometimes this card comes through with almost like a wound that has become like infected or inflamed. Like you have to remove whatever the wound is, right? And it could be something very small, but because it hasn't been removed or hasn't been dealt with or treated or whatever it is, it becomes uncomfortable, even if it's sort of a small thing. And so that's what this eagle is talking about. It's like zeroing in on whatever this past wound is that's causing discomfort. You're almost there, I want to say. Like you're so close to it. And it's kind of like, after that happens, there will be this sort of healing and healing, and also like a rebirth, right? There's going to be some sort of truth or something that grows from that space that you've created. What's so interesting here is that for the tarot, you have the Four of Pentacles and the Wheel of Fortune, which I love together, the imagery that's coming through with this, because the Four of Pentacles I often describe as being sort of like things that are locked up, right? Or they look good on paper, or there's this kind of like artifice, right? Superficial kind of appearances are good kind of energy here. And then the Wheel of Fortune, which is really interesting because it's bringing in sort of like the timing, right? Like going back in time, or like revisiting a past moment or something like that. But with this card here, it's reminding me of the show that I just finished watching. It's on Netflix. It's not the greatest show ever, but it's called Half Bad. And one of the characters in that show has the power to like dismantle or take apart things, right? So she was able to sort of like take an object, for instance, or even people, and sort of dismantle them into their individual components. That's kind of what this is looking like. And I feel like that's sort of what you're doing, Cancer. Perhaps on like your own life, right? Or your own experiences. You're taking this sort of like thing that's been locked up, or if it's not locked up, it's not necessarily hidden. Perhaps there's some aspect of that, or it's just kind of like taking the artifice or the superficiality and dismantling it into all of its individual parts, so you can kind of see like why. So it could be like your own psyche, right? Like why it is that you have these patterns, or why you think this way, or why whatever it is for you, right? It's like trying to understand yourself better is kind of how this is feeling, especially with like the heart, right? The thing at the center. You're trying to figure out what that thing is at the center, like perhaps like your core motivation, or like it's coming through so much with like invincibility, because it's kind of like, if you understand every single aspect of yourself, it's like there's nothing that can actually harm you in that case, right? Like there's something really interesting about that. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that might be for you to uncover a little bit more. It's kind of like, if you know how everything about yourself works, which is, I'm being hyperbolic there. Of course, there's rarely ever, I don't know if it's possible to ever know everything you can about your own self, but it's like, you know, at least the core, right? The main, how the main thing works, or like how your heart works, or like how your heart loves, or something like that. So that's an interesting combination of cards. And then the next ones here you have are the Hermit and the Ace of Pentacles, which I love because these are all like very solitary kind of like inner journey work kind of cards, with the Hermit, which I feel like is kind of self-explanatory. And then the Ace of Pentacles, which is talking about like some sort of new opportunity or growth coming out of this space here, right? Because it's kind of like you cleared out all the fire ants, right? You cleared out all of the discomfort. And from this sort of underground, there's this like new life emerging from that, which is really, really lovely. And what's interesting here, something that you may not be seeing with the next couple of cards to come out, you have here the Nine of Cups, which is coming through with the owl, which is so interesting because I feel like this is somebody else. This is another person, perhaps in your life, or you may not even know them, right? It may be something like a stranger or something like that. And it's like this Nine of Cups today was coming through almost like William Shakespeare or like a bard or a storyteller. It's kind of like, especially with the owl, right? It's somebody who's almost like witnessing what it is that you're doing and creating, like almost like seeing you as being some sort of like the center of it. You're the hero of the story, right? Like with the bard, it's like they take stories, they're weaving some sort of story about your experiences and are making it into something really gorgeous and beautiful. And it's kind of like, because they're seeing you as being incredibly brave is how it's coming through, right? They're seeing you as this with the gazelle. I love these cards because today the eyes were looking identical to me today. It's kind of like something like they see this aspect of you, right? They see into your soul or something like that. They can see some aspect of your truth or your core or something like that. They can see through all of the artifice, whatever that is, the Four of Pentacles, right? They're seeing through all of that and they're seeing this aspect of you. So it's kind of like this may be a very sort of private thing that you're going through. Like you're not necessarily sharing it or you're keeping it hidden, especially with shadow work, of course. That's always kind of like a solitary thing that like other people aren't necessarily privy to. But for this, it's like this one here, this William Shakespeare character absolutely sees you and they're seeing you as being like a hero or like a legend or something like that. It's very like, and it's almost like they're trying to uplift you, or perhaps they're inspired by you as well, right? Perhaps they're inspired by what it is that you're doing or something like that. They're just because they're seeing you as being incredibly strong, right? It's like this here is the two of Pentacles, which I am seeing as being like how they see you, right? Because it's kind of looking like this. Hold on. So this is you sort of at the top of this tower here, right? Like in solitary, kind of like doing your thing, just focusing on your personal growth, perhaps. And then here, this is how they're seeing you, where it's kind of like, it's almost like, I don't want to say like romanticizing your story. Maybe that's what they're doing, but in a very, not in a, like a unwelcome way, right? It's not something that's like, I don't feel like they're trying to like capitalize off of you or anything like that, right? It's not anything like they're trying to, profit from this or anything like that. I hope anyways. It doesn't feel like that. It's more so just trying to uplift you is kind of how this is feeling, right? They're seeing what it is that you're going through and they're trying to encourage you. They're saying you're doing an incredible job. This is something that not a lot of people can do or are brave enough to handle, but it's like you're doing it with a lot of it almost feels like ease, right? Like you're doing it with ease and grace and skill is kind of how I'm seeing this, right? You're experiencing all of this like sort of difficulty and experiencing it with, or executing it with skill, whatever that means. It's kind of just like they're encouraging you, right? And they're seeing you also as being like this Queen of Pentacles, right? It's like they're reminding you that you're the hero of your own story kind of thing. That's the vibe that they're coming through with. It's very encouraging, right? It's not anything that they're like, I don't know why that's being emphasized. They're not trying to profit off of you, right? It's kind of, I'm just being reminded of like stories of like people taking other people's trauma and almost like romanticizing it. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It's not anything like exploitative, maybe. But anyways, there's here with the Six of Wands, because that's your energy, absolutely. Sort of at the end, when you've conquered and risen from the ashes, so to speak. What was really interesting here is like the birds sort of sitting on the stalk there, and it was reminding me of, if you've seen those videos of like birds sitting on electrical wires, right? And so because of like the pattern or the distance between like where the birds are sitting, how they're clustered together, sometimes it can look like music notes on a score. And so there are videos of people sort of like playing the notes that the birds are making. Does that make sense? Playing the music that the birds are making. And that's what this one is doing for you, right? This one here is seeing sort of the work that you've been doing, right? Just your natural, perhaps your music, what it is that you're creating from your experience, especially because you have the creator, right? They're seeing some aspect, and perhaps this is also what you're doing as well. But I feel like it's kind of them, or it's both, right? There may be some sort of, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not a collaboration, but it kind of feels like you're the one who's like writing the music, let's say, right? Like, or just like metaphorically, what could that translate into? You're the one who's just sort of you're just being like, you're doing your work. You're doing your work, whatever that means for you. You're doing your work, and this one is seeing it and is playing the music that you're creating, right? They're giving voice to the music that you have written, if that makes sense. They're giving voice to the music that you have written, and it's really lovely. It's really gorgeous. They're trying to uplift you. It kind of just feels like a bystander, or like a something like that. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it's really gorgeous and lovely, Cancer. So I'm going to leave it there for the reading. We're going to go to the extended, and we're going to talk about what's something else you might need to know about this situation. You can find the link for the extended in the description box below. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day.